Thank you. On July 27, 2003, I was in Baghdad, stationed with the Special Operations Task Force assigned for the capture of high-value targets in Iraq. Target number one was Saddam Hussein. I'd only been in country for a couple of days, and I was told they needed an interrogator in Tikrit for a night raid. I packed a single change of clothes, hopped on a helicopter, and I began the mission that would forever change my life. In Tikrit, I was picked up by an 8-man team from the task force. These were 8 of the most elite soldiers in the United States military, but they lacked an interrogator. As soon as we arrived, we headed off for the raid. They captured a handful of prisoners. Now, prior to arriving in Tikrit, I'd not actually conducted a live interrogation. So I took the 8 weeks of interrogation training I'd received in 1999, and I went to work. I interrogated the prisoners they captured, and I also interrogated other prisoners that they'd captured in the previous weeks. I did this day in, day out, constantly. And after about 10 days, something was becoming very, very clear. I wasn't getting anybody to talk. They weren't not opening up to me. I used all the methods and tactics that I learned in training, and they just flat didn't work. I was taught to interrogate a prisoner from the enemy military's army. I was taught to interrogate the German soldier on the front lines of World War II. I was taught to interrogate an enemy soldier in an enemy uniform with a weapon and a mission and a chain of command. Everything that I learned was on these training scenarios. And none of the scenarios, they couldn't deny being a soldier in the enemy military. All interrogations began with prisoners admitting that much. But by July 2003, the Iraqi military had dissolved. Our enemy was an insurgent who blended in with the local populace, because he was the local populace. They maintained day jobs. They conducted operations at night. They were setting off roadside IEDs. They weren't squaring off against U.S. forces on a battlefield. When captured, they were at their home in civilian clothes, asleep, with no smoking gun. And during interrogations, they absolutely refused any involvement in the insurgency. After several dozen interrogations, where I collected absolutely zero useful information, I went and asked a team of analysts, what are other interrogators doing to get these guys to open up? And the analysts were very clear. We're not getting any useful information from interrogations. We were fighting a different war. The United States Army was prepared to fight against the enemy country's military. This was an insurgency. And I knew if I was going to get any relevant information, I was going to have to change the way I conducted my interrogations, or I was going to remain a non-factor in this war. My trip to Tikrit went from 48 hours to 4.5 months. I ended up conducting over 300 interrogations. And by December 13, 2003, I determined there were only 2 individuals in all of Iraq who could take us to the location of Saddam Hussein. At 2 o'clock in the morning, that 8-man team from Tikrit conducted a raid to capture one of those 2 men, a Mohammed Ibrahim Omar al-Muslit. Mohammed Ibrahim was a former inner circle bodyguard to Saddam. By December 2003, Saddam had cut off all ties with his family, all ties with former regime members, and all ties to his trusted bodyguards, except for Mohammed Ibrahim. At 2 o'clock in the morning, this 8-man team that I'd been with for 4.5 months conducted a raid, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, we captured Mohammed Ibrahim. At 5 o'clock in the morning on the 13th, I began my interrogations of him, and by 7 o'clock in the morning, Mohammed Ibrahim very politely and very eagerly provided me the hiding location of Saddam Hussein. At 8 o'clock that night, the 8-man team that I'd been with conducted a raid, and Mohammed Ibrahim walked them to the exact spider hole of his boss, his president, Saddam Hussein. Why'd he do it? I didn't torture him. I didn't lay a finger on him. Was I lucky? Was he a weak man? Was the man Saddam Hussein trust his life with just weak? 10 days before we captured Saddam, I interrogated Muhammad Ibrahim's driver, the man Muhammad Ibrahim trusts more than anybody else in the world. And he led me to Muhammad Ibrahim. 2 weeks before that, I interrogated another man who led me to the driver. Were they all weak? Was I onto something? I arrived in Tikrit, and I couldn't get anyone to talk. And I mean, nobody. By the first week of November, I had a precise link diagram, essentially a roadmap to Saddam. It consisted of 9 steps, each step a different individual, and every individual had to cooperate or we never would have found him. So what changed? As an interrogator, my job is to collect timely, accurate information for the team that I supported. Everything I was doing in these interrogations initially was to get the things that I needed, the information I needed, and I was failing miserably. 10 days into my trip to Tikrit, I was interrogating this one particular individual. He was a former regime member. He was a distant relative of Saddam, and I knew he had valuable information. I've been interrogating him on and off for 2 days straight with absolutely no signs of him opening up and cooperating with me. So before I quit, I finally, out of frustration, I asked him, "What's your problem? Why are you lying to me when you know I'm right about you?" And he sat there for a couple of seconds, and he very deliberately told me, "You can't help me." And I thought to myself, "You can't help me? You're the enemy. I'm not supposed to help you. I'm supposed to help my army, my team, myself." See, I was taught that we go to war against armies. When we capture their guys, they're our prisoners. They're going to stay our prisoners until the war's over, and then they all go home. Those soldiers on the enemy's army, they don't go home at night. They're on the battlefield 24/7 regardless. It doesn't really matter if they get captured. They're just not on the battlefield. They're in our prison. But this was an insurgent. And as I looked at this man, and I thought about all the other dozens of insurgent fighters I was dealing with, I thought, you can't help me. But what if I can? Because these insurgents, they're in our custody because of their potential that if we let them go, they go back to their insurgent cell, and then they're our enemy again. Not because of the crimes they've committed. We couldn't let prisoners in World War II go because you're dealing with an entire army. These are individual insurgents fighting in small pockets. What if we take out that small pocket? What if we take out the leaders of that small pocket? I release this man. He doesn't go back to fighting. He goes home to his responsibilities, to his job during the day. You're no longer a threat. I explained all this to the prisoner. He listened to everything, but all he really heard was, "And you go home." And from that day on, interrogations came easy. So I was no longer bickering with these prisoners over guilt or innocence. I put myself in their shoes. I have a quote from a great man. I don't know when I wrote this down. It's from a Robin Myers. Imagine what it's like to be the other person. And that's what I did. Imagine what it's like to be the other person. Put yourself in their shoes, address their problems, and they'll solve all of mine. And from that day on, the information came flooding in. We developed a massive link diagram. It consisted of over 20 insurgent groups. From there, it eventually led to the trail, which took us to Saddam. And the beautiful part about this was that when I captured this individual, this prisoner, and he realized what his situation is, he realized how he was going to go home and how he was going to help me. He understood that his buddies, his comrades, As soon as they found out he was captured, they were going to move. So he had to get a ball on quick, and they did. Micro picture. This is a wonderful way to take down and to track down any high-value target around the world. This is a wonderful way to track down and to interrogate any insurgent. But what about the bigger picture? When I began and developed these techniques out of necessity, I did it because I was hoping to get information for my team. That's it, but I didn't expect to change the face of a battlefield. But what I realized after I watched this process take shape and I saw this chain reaction occur is that I realized this technique, these techniques, this is how you win wars. And when I say win, I mean end wars. We take our prisoner. I explained to him, here's your situation. Here's how you go home. We're going to hunt you down. See, there's thousands of Americans here. They are going to hunt your boys down, all your insurgent buddies. They're going to hunt them down, and they may kill them. See, they do it they're going full force. With me, I'm going to let you and me go together to that house. You're going to take them to me, and then I'm going to give them the same opportunity. And these insurgents, they want to go home, and they want to see their comrades not die, but get the same opportunity. And they do. And why do they do it? Because they're not in an army of the enemy government. They're civilians with civilian day jobs. They have that opportunity. They can lay down their arms and just go home. And if we put the pressure on them, let them understand that we are going to take them out if they continue to fight, but if they allow us to dissolve their team, that we will let them go home. And as this process occurs in an insurgency are a movement. They're an idea. Insurgents don't have tons of weapons, tanks. They don't live inside a fortified compound. They're based on ideas, trust, and communication. When we turn insurgents upon themselves and then we start capturing them from the inside, they lose all trust. They stop communications. They're afraid to wonder who inside their insurgency is providing this precise location to take them out. And they have the opportunity to lay down their arms and go home. As we are doing this, simply dissolving and desecrating insurgencies throughout our little section of the battlefield, what's the collateral damage? Collateral damage is the number one tool for any insurgency movement. For every single individual citizen who's innocently killed, you've just created 10 more insurgents. Through these techniques, we use our prisoners to take us to the exact location, show us the exact prisoner. 0 collateral damage. The locals don't even know we're there. 4.5 months, 8-man team. Dissolved 20 insurgency networks and captured the most wanted man in the world. During that 4.5 months, we fired not a single shot. We didn't even fire a single shot. 0 collateral damage. Since 9/11, I've been on 7 deployments. I've conducted over 2,500 interrogations. I've been on 200 combat raids. And every single time that I've had the opportunity to run these techniques and run this process in our battle space, the insurgency has completely dissolved. And the benefits on the U.S. side, we're not stuck with prisons filled with local citizens who were captured because we were just one house off. We don't have interrogators that waste thousands of man hours filtering through these individuals trying to figure out who actually are the insurgent members. And as a result, these interrogators aren't capable of collecting useful information. As a result, the commanders no longer trust their interrogators, and they resort to sweeps of villages, hoping to stumble across the enemy. Instead, our interrogators work with insurgents. We cut the deal with insurgents. We give them the opportunity. We do not touch the landscape. Capturing Saddam and other high-value targets around the world has been an extremely fulfilling experience. But to watch insurgencies and cross large battlefields has shown me that if we implement these techniques throughout the entire battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan, we finish these wars within a year, 2 years. Whenever I talk about the capture of Saddam, I'm often asked, can you find bin Laden? And I would like to quote another great man, Chris Howard, who said, be humble and with all the humility in the world. If I was ever asked to find Osama bin Laden and had the opportunity to use these techniques, we'd get him. And I'd like to quote Dr. Howard one more time when he said, be accountable. If I don't find him, they can leave me out there. I want to thank you all for your time. God bless. God bless y'all, and God bless America.